Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine, even in a crowded room? It's that inexplicable sensation that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, as if an unseen force is brushing against you. You look around trying to find the source, but all you see are the familiar faces of strangers, each absorbed in their own world. Yet you can't shake off the feeling that someone or something is watching you, a sense that unseen eyes are watching your every move. It's as if the shadows themselves have come alive, their dark forms shifting and morphing, creating an eerie dance that only you can perceive. You try to rationalize it, telling yourself it's just your imagination, but deep down, you know there's more to it. The air grows colder, and the silence becomes deafening, amplifying the sound of your own heartbeat. That unsettling feeling, my friends, is real. It's a primal instinct, a warning bell from deep within our souls, telling us we're not alone. Our ancestors relied on this instinct to survive, to sense danger lurking in the shadows. And though we live in a modern world, this ancient alarm still rings true, reminding us of the unseen forces that exist just beyond our perception. It's a primal instinct, a warning bell from deep within our souls, telling us we're not alone. It's as if our very essence is attuned to the presence of the unknown, a sixth sense that alerts us to the supernatural. We may try to ignore it, to dismiss it as mere superstition, but the truth is, some things cannot be explained by logic alone. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's more than just a feeling, it's a sign. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's more than just a feeling, it's a sign that something otherworldly is trying to make contact, to reach out from the shadows and into our world. These signs can be subtle, like a fleeting shadow in the corner of your eye, or they can be blatant, like a cold hand brushing against your skin. But one thing is certain, they are not to be ignored. This is the story of the Johnson family and their descent into a nightmare on Shadow Hill. A story that proves some houses aren't meant to be homes, they become prisons. The Johnsons thought they had found their dream house, a beautiful old mansion on a hill, surrounded by lush forests and stunning views. But what they didn't know was that this house had a dark history, one that would soon reveal itself in the most terrifying ways. A story that proves some houses aren't meant to be homes. They become prisons. The walls of the house seemed to whisper secrets, the floors creaked under the weight of unseen footsteps, and the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. The Johnsons began to experience strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, disembodied voices calling their names, and ghostly apparitions appearing in the dead of night. Vessels for the restless spirits of the dead. The house on Shadow Hill was not just a building, it was a vessel for the restless spirits of those who had perished within its walls. These spirits, trapped between worlds, sought to communicate with the living, to tell their stories and find peace. But their presence brought only fear and despair to the Johnson family, who soon realized that leaving the house would not be as simple as they had hoped. This is their story, a chilling reminder that some places are haunted not by ghosts, but by the echoes of the past. The Johnsons seemed like an ordinary family. John, the father, was a hard-working carpenter. Mary, his wife, was a loving homemaker. Their daughter Emily, a bright and cheerful 8-year-old, was the apple of their eye. They yearned for a fresh start, a place to call their own. That's when they found it. A charming, albeit somewhat isolated, Victorian house nestled at the foot of a hill. Shadow Hill. The locals, however, seemed to avoid the property. Their whispers hinted at a dark history. But the Johnsons, blinded by their optimism, dismissed it as mere superstition. The first few days were idyllic. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the rooms in vibrant hues. The Johnson family had just moved into Shadow Hill, a grand old mansion with a storied past. They were enchanted by its beauty and history, feeling as though they had stepped into a fairy tale. The children, Emma and Jack, spent their days exploring the vast hallways and secret rooms, their laughter filling the air with joy and excitement. Laughter echoed through the hallways. The sound was almost musical, a stark contrast to the eerie silence that would soon envelop the house. The parents, Sarah and Michael, were busy unpacking and settling in, blissfully unaware of the subtle changes happening around them. But as days turned into nights, the atmosphere shifted. The once warm and inviting mansion began to feel cold and unwelcoming. Shadows seemed to grow longer and darker, creeping into every corner of the house. The children started to feel uneasy, their laughter fading into whispers of fear. The silence of Shadow Hill, wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, expectant. It felt as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The once comforting quiet now felt oppressive, pressing down on the family with an invisible weight. Doors creaked open on their own. At first they thought it was just the old house settling, but soon it became clear that something more sinister was at play. The doors would open and close at odd hours, as if guided by an unseen hand. The scent of damp earth and decaying flowers wafted through the air. It was a smell that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, filling the rooms with a sense of decay and abandonment. The once vibrant garden outside now looked neglected and overgrown, adding to the growing sense of unease. Whispers, barely audible, seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. They were soft at first, almost indistinguishable from the creaks and groans of the old house. But as the nights grew longer, the whispers became more distinct, carrying with them a sense of dread and foreboding. The Johnsons, however, remained oblivious. They attributed the strange occurrences to the house settling or their imaginations running wild. Sarah and Michael dismissed the children's fears as mere nightmares, reassuring them that there was nothing to be afraid of. But they were wrong. The nightmare had only just begun. Shadow Hill was not just an old mansion, it was a place where the past refused to stay buried, where the walls held secrets too dark to be revealed. The Johnsons were about to discover that some whispers in the dark are impossible to ignore. It started gradually. Objects moved inexplicably. Footsteps echoed in the dead of night. Then, one night, Emily woke up screaming. Her small finger pointed at a dark corner of her room. "Someone's there!" she whimpered, her eyes wide with terror. "Someone's watching me!" John and Mary dismissed it as a nightmare. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown. They couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. They were living in a house they didn't know, haunted by something they couldn't see. Desperate for answers, John installed security cameras throughout the house. The footage that played back on their computer screen sent chills down their spines. A shadowy figure, translucent and undefined, glided through the hallway. It lingered in Emily's room, its form shifting and swirling in the darkness. It was watching her. The evidence was undeniable. Shadow Hill was haunted. Section 6. Unmasking the Past. John and Mary, now consumed by fear, reached out for help. They contacted a renowned paranormal investigator, a man who had dedicated his life to unveiling the truth behind the veil. His name was whispered in hushed tones among those who dared to believe. Professor Eldridge. Eldridge arrived at Shadow Hill, his weathered face etched with years of experience battling the unseen. He entered the house, not with fear, but with a quiet determination to confront whatever darkness lurked within. Section 7. A Haunted History. Eldridge spent days researching the history of Shadow Hill, poring over dusty records and local folklore. He was determined to uncover the secrets that had shrouded the hill in mystery for centuries. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the eerie occurrences, the inexplicable sounds, and the ghostly apparitions that seemed to plague the area. Eldridge's curiosity was piqued, and he knew that the answers lay hidden in the annals of history. Finally, after countless hours of meticulous research, he unearthed the truth. It was a revelation that sent shivers down his spine and made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The documents he found were old and fragile, but they held the key to understanding the dark past of Shadow Hill. The land on which Shadow Hill stood was once the site of a witch trial. In the late 1600s, during a time of rampant superstition and fear, the townspeople had accused a young woman of practicing witchcraft. The trial was swift and merciless, with little regard for justice or truth. The courtroom was filled with an air of dread and anticipation as the verdict was delivered. A young woman, falsely accused of practicing dark magic, was hanged from a tree on that very spot. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was known for her kindness and healing abilities. However, in a time of fear and ignorance, her talents were misconstrued as witchcraft. The townspeople, driven by hysteria, condemned her to a fate she did not deserve. Her dying breath was a curse, vowing to haunt the land forever. Her name was Elizabeth. As the noose tightened around her neck, she uttered a chilling curse, swearing that her spirit would never find peace and would remain bound to the land where she had been so unjustly condemned. Her words echoed through the ages, a testament to her enduring rage and sorrow. And her spirit, consumed by rage and injustice, had never left Shadow Hill. Over the years, many had reported seeing her ghostly figure wandering the hill, her eyes filled with a sorrow that could never be quenched. The haunted house on the hill became a symbol of her restless spirit, a place where the past and present seemed to collide in a perpetual state of unease. She was the watchful presence, the whisper in the dark, the shadowy figure on the camera. Those who dared to venture near the hill at night often spoke of feeling an unseen presence, a cold breath on the back of their necks, and the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Elizabeth's spirit had become an integral part of the legend of Shadow Hill, a haunting reminder of the past that refused to be forgotten. Section 8. Abandonment and Echoes. The Johnsons, their dream home turned into a nightmare, couldn't bear to stay another night. They packed their belongings, the fear palpable in their hurried movements. As they drove away, Emily cast one last glance at the house, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and sadness. Shadow Hill stands abandoned to this day. Locals say you can still hear Elizabeth's mournful cries echoing through the empty halls. Some even claim to see lights flickering in the dead of night as if she's reliving the horror of her final moments. Section 9. The Reality of the Unknown. The Johnson family's experience is a chilling reminder that the world is full of mysteries, things that go bump in the night. Don't dismiss the whispers of the unknown, don't ignore the signs, because sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that are true.